Hi, my name is Bill Cooper and welcome back to the second video in the Windows 10 deployment scenario series. In the first video we installed the roles and services that we needed onto our main deployment server in the main site. We configured the SQL database and extended it a little bit. We created an empty deployment share, made a deployment logs folder, we copied across some extra files that we put into our extra files directory, mainly for the DecodeExit script. And that's about all that we did. What we'll do in this video is we'll start configuring the MDT software. So we want to go into Start menu, we want to launch the deployment workbench. In fact, why don't we pin that to a few places while we're here. First thing that we should do is start creating some folder structure. So underneath applications we're going to create a folder for every different software vendor that we use. So we might have Adobe, we probably will have Java, even though it's Sun, but still J for Java, that'll do. And we're going to have Microsoft. Now I would recommend to create a subfolder for every vendor. Don't put any applications up into the root here, because what we're actually going to have in the root of applications are application bundles, not individual applications. And you'll see why we use application bundles a little bit later. Inside operating systems we'll make a new folder, call it Win10. And in out-of-box drivers we're going to make a bunch of things here. Firstly we need a folder for the operating system version that we're deploying, and you might have multiple of these. We also need a folder for boot drivers. Underneath Windows 10 we need a folder for every vendor. So maybe we've got Dell computers in our organization. Maybe we have some Lenovo computers in our organization. And you can keep adding as many vendors as you need. And under each vendor you need to put a folder for each model. So for Dell, let's pretend that we've got Optiplex 9020s in the environment. And for Lenovo's we might have some X1 carbons, so they're something like 20AS0001. That's not right, but it's close enough. Dell is really nice. Their model number that's stored in the BIOS is the same as what the computer is actually called, Optiplex 9020. Whereas Lenovo, this one here, this is an X1 carbon, and its model number is 20AS and then something. It's really quite annoying. Anyway, maybe we've got another type of carbon. This is also an X1 carbon, the 20BT series. But they might have different drivers, different software packages, that sort of stuff. So we need a folder for each of those. We should make a selection profile for our boot drivers folder that we created. So make a new selection profile, and funnily enough we'll call it boot drivers, and it's only going to have boot drivers. We should now import our operating system for Windows 10, and I have no DVD drive on this system. Be right back. Okay, we now have a DVD drive on our deployment server, so let's pop in the disk for Windows 10 Enterprise trial, and let's do a import operating system. Full set of source files, because we've just put in the DVD, and we're just going to go straight down to our DVD disk and we're going to import that. Destination directory name, we don't really need all of that junk on the end, just call it Windows 10 Enterprise and let that import. Okay, that's finished importing the Windows 10 operating system. Let's get an application added. Let's import Microsoft Office 2013. So let's change the disk over to Office 2013 Pro Plus Trial. Let's make a new application, call it Microsoft Office 2013 Pro Plus. We're going to install that from our DVD. The command line is just going to be setup.exe. install or import. Yeah, it's finished importing already. Office 2013 Pro Plus. Now that we've added Office 2013 Pro Plus, I'll show you one thing. If we go into Office Products, we go into the properties of the application, there's an Office Products tab because it's detected that it's an Office product, and we can set what we want and no display level, and basically make it a silent install. However, we're not going to do this. We're going to use a custom MSP file. So now that we've got Office in there, we might as well do that straight away. All you need to do is you need to download the administration pack for Office 2013. I've got that here, the admin templates. It's got a folder called admin. If we copy that and put it into the Office 2013 folder on our D drive, deployment share, applications, Microsoft Office, chuck that admin folder straight into here. Now that we've got an admin folder, when we go into the properties of Office now, we go to Office Products, we'll see an Office Customization Tool link. If we click on that, when done, save it to the updates directory, just telling you where to put the file. Basically, any MSP file that is saved into the updates subfolder of Office will get processed automatically. So if this MSP includes settings for silent installation, then that's it. You just run setup.exe, it finds this, and happy days. So we can put our organization name in here, test lab. It's going to go with a KMS, because I don't have a key. None, no cancel, so we basically have a silent installation. Most of this stuff we're just going to leave. We're not going to really do much about it. Customizing it this time around, as long as it's a silent install, that's all that we need for a proof of concept. You probably already have customized Office in your environment that you're going to use. I'm going to turn off some of these so that it installs a little bit faster, things that a lot of users don't use anyway, or you might not have them in your environment. Everything else pretty much fine. So we're going to save this file into deployment drive, deployment share, applications, Microsoft Office, chuck it in the updates folder. We can call it whatever we want. We'll call it silent. Okay, that's it. Our Office will now install silently just by running setup.exe, because it will find that MSP file in the updates folder. So that's Office done. Now we should import a driver pack. I've pre-downloaded 2 driver packs to import. I've got one for boot drivers. Now boot drivers are things that get included in the boot image. You need to have network drivers and storage drivers for pretty much everything. Any type of computer that you want to image, to access the network and to get to the storage on that device, the boot image needs to have the right drivers. So I've got some ones that I downloaded a little bit earlier for Dell. I've got one for the 9020, and I've got a Windows PE driver package, which is for the boot drivers. Oh, almost did it wrong. I'm actually importing the boot drivers right now, the Windows PE. Now in those folders, you see there's just a single cab file, the same with the 9020. This is the brilliance of using corporate/business/enterprise type computers, where the vendor provides an enterprise driver pack. You just download a single file, it's got everything needed, it's in the right format, and it's compatible with both SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager, and MDT Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. You'll get a couple of warnings. Does not appear to support platform x86 as indicated. That's fine, because we're not even going to deploy x86. So they were the boot drivers, and now we'll do the ones for the Optiplex 9020. Okay, so it's finished importing the drivers for the Optiplex 9020. So that's an example there of what you would do. Now each vendor is going to provide you a WinPE driver pack, so you would get the Dell one installed, get the Lenovo one installed, just import them all into boot drivers. But then for specific computers, you want to import their drivers into their specific folder, which matches the task sequence ID, the make, and the model. I'm not going to do the Lenovo's because we're not even going to use these at the moment. Now we should create a task sequence to install Windows 10. So let's make a new task sequence. Task sequence ID needs to be Win10 so that it matches the folder structure. So then we can use the task sequence ID variable as part of the path to where the drivers are, and this allows expansion later. If you're going to add maybe Windows 8.1 for some reason, you can have a task sequence Win81, and the out-of-box drivers would have a subfolder called Win81, and you would then put all of your makes and models underneath that and import the right driver packages. Task sequence name, it doesn't matter, just call Windows 10. It's going to be a standard client task sequence. We're going to pick the operating system, Windows 10 Enterprise. We're not going to specify a key at this time, but if you had one, you could put one in here. Name, organization, might have some specific settings that management want you to put into here, and you could even set a custom home page. Maybe you've got a intranet on your test lab. Not that I do, but whatever. Set an administrator password for the computer, and the task sequence is finished. We're going to open up the task sequence and we're going to edit it a little bit. If we go into the task sequence tab, we'll find that Windows updates are disabled. Pre-application install and post-application install updates are disabled. So we want to go into the options. We want to untick disable this step. Do that for both of them. So now we have updates that get installed before applications and after applications. So it'll do reboots if needed, and it will do 2 passes of installing updates from WSUS. Now the next step for our drivers, so that we can import or inject the right drivers for the particular model based on the operating system, I want to go to the pre-install section, and you'll see here it does an inject drivers phase, but what we want to do is we want to add a task sequence variable. In fact, we want that above, it has to be above inject drivers. We want it to continue on error, so it gets a little green tick, and we're going to set the task sequence variable for driver group 001. We want that to be task sequence ID manufacturer, no, make, model. A task sequence, make, and model. Apply that. The inject drivers, we want to choose nothing and install only matching drivers. Hit apply, and that's basically it for our task sequence. It is ready to go. Except that I forgot something. In this environment we're actually having a SSL connection to WSUS, and I don't think it's going to work because it won't have the right certificate. So I've got a certificate here. I'm going to copy that, and on the D drive and the deployment share, I'm going to make a new folder called cert. I'm going to put the certificate in there. So the path to that from the network would be test Darwin DSO1 deployment share cert. Oh, so I don't have access to it. Love the way that it sets up the sharing permissions on these folders. Let's fix that up. It's just nasty. Let's add ourselves in. Gives ourselves full control. Try that again. Okay, so now it's accessible on the network. That's the path. What we need to do is we want to inject that into our system before it does the Windows updates. Actually, it looks like it's going to join the domain before it does the updates. I got that wrong. But we'll do it anyway because it can't hurt. What we're going to do is we're going to add a new step, and we're going to run a command line. Now the command line that we're going to run is cmd with a command cert util add store. We want to put it in the root certificate store. We've got that path to our network share and the name of our root certificate file. I want it to continue on error, so it gets a green tick. and we'll apply that. I don't think we have to do that in this case though, and we can give it a better name. We can call it import root certificate. So now we've got an application, Microsoft Office, we've got an operating system, we've got some drivers, we've got boot drivers, we've got a task sequence. Next step is to configure the deployment share properties. Right-click deployment share properties. We don't want to support 32-bit machines, you shouldn't even really have them anymore. We want to enable multicast so that you have fast and slow streams so that the slow computers don't slow down the fast ones. Rules, we're not going to do anything really in here at the moment, although we will delete all of this stuff. We're not going to use any of this actually. Under Windows PE, we're not even going to be making x86 because we've unticked it here, so we don't even need to change these settings. But if we go into x64 platform, we don't want to make an ISO file. We want to use our custom background image file, which we put in program files, deployment toolkit, extra files, custom background. We want to have our extra directory added. Now that was D drive, program files, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, extra files, so that our deploy scripts folder gets added and we have the DecodeExit scripts available. We don't need to set scratch space size because this version of Windows PE will totally ignore this setting and do whatever it wants. We don't need to change any of the features. Driver and patches, what we do want to do is change it to boot drivers and include all the drivers from the boot drivers. So we're not going to inject every single driver from every system into the boot image, it'll just make it overly large, but we are going to inject all of the drivers needed to boot and have Windows PE functional on each computer. Monitoring, we're going to turn monitoring on as well, and it'll automatically create the firewall rules for these ports, so there's not much else to do there. Now that that's done, we should have actually stayed in there because we want to go back into rules. Look, see, it's added our event service. We can get rid of that as well. We're going to add that into the database. But we do want to edit the bootstrap.ini file. Now the bootstrap is actually in the boot image, and it gives the boot image the settings it needs to connect to the deployment share. It tells it where the deployment share is and how to connect to it. We're going to change this file around quite a bit. Here's one that I prepared earlier. We're going to add a new section called decode, and we're going to process that before the default section. Here's the decode section here. It's got a user exit attribute of DecodeExit Script, and we're creating a custom property called encoded user password, which is here, and this is just a base 64 encoded representation of the password. Now what the DecodeExit Script does, it gets any variable with encoded in the front of it, chops off the encoded and makes a new variable with whatever's after encoded. So in this case it's going to make a variable called user password with the password in plain text that we need. Normally if you didn't have this DecodeExit script running, you would actually need to have this down here. You would have user password equals and your top secret password. You have that in plain text. So we're just making it just that one step more difficult for users to do something with that. Most users will look at that and they won't know what to do with it. So we're setting our deployment route in the Darwin deployment share. So all of the initial settings are going to come from here, and then settings in the database will redirect them off to different deployment shares in their own location. We're going to skip the welcome screen, which is normally where it asks you for the username, the password and the deployment share path. We're going to give it the domain name and the user ID and the user password that it needs to connect to that. So that's it for the bootstrap file. Give that a save and close it off. We're basically done in here. Now what we can do is we can go in and we can configure our database settings. Now this video, we're almost up to the 20-minute mark, so we might just hold it off there. We've got everything imported that we need to import for our demonstration. We've configured the deployment share properties, we've configured our two rules files, the custom settings and the bootstrap. And that's about all that we'll do in this video. So come back next time and we'll start configuring the actual database, and then we'll see how this all goes together. Thank you.